When it comes to the LNU, the SCU, and the CZU Lightning Complex wildfires, there's some interesting updates to talk about, especially with regards to the LNU complex, but for the most part, it's going to be all good news today. There are still a couple of concerns in the region that we're going to be diving into, but I would say that these fires appear to be wrapping up at this point, and then we'll be able to transition into that mop up and repopulation stage of a wildfire, hopefully pretty soon here. So if we look at the LNU Lightning Complex, I would say for the most part, this fire is looking pretty good right now. If we zoom in and look at this very coastal fire here, that one is about 100% contained. In this west zone, this has really been a tricky area for firefighters. It's steep, rugged terrain with a lot of heavy fuels. So I know this has been giving them a lot of trouble, but they made some great progress yesterday, and you can see there's way less hotspots on this map than have been showing up in previous days. So now that there's not that many areas where there's active fire, the active fire being shown by these little red dots here, they're really going to be able to concentrate their resources to just connect all the dots around the southern and eastern side, protect these high populated areas, and hopefully put this fire to bed. Now, when it comes to the main fire for the LNU complex, this is where things get kind of interesting with this one. We've been talking about this northwest corner for the last couple of days, as this has really been what they were calling the last critical point of this fire. And I'm happy to say they made a lot of progress yesterday. Yesterday, you could see a lot of these hotspots were outside of the previous fire perimeter. Now you can see they're mostly on the inside. CAL FIRE said they threw a ton of resources at this yesterday, really got some great lines in, and they're feeling pretty confident about their containment. And they're going to just continue containing that more today as weather conditions don't look all that bad. Now, I will say with regards to the LNU complex, this northern area actually kind of blew up yesterday. You can see it really expanded outside the previous fire perimeter, and CAL FIRE said this is one of their major priorities for today, just getting some lines around this, just stop it in its tracks so they can start to really put this fire to bed. Now on the eastern side, this is basically mop up. They're actually gathering some of their resources and bringing them elsewhere, as well as this southern edge, working through some repopulation efforts, I believe right now. So don't take my word for it. Check the CAL FIRE website for all the recent evacuations. One thing that's true about all these fires is when a fire comes through like this, it really weakens all the trees. So then they're at risk of falling over. In fact, a lot of them have been falling over. So I know CAL FIRE has been saying before they can let people back in, they really just have to make sure the area is safe. But overall, when it comes to the LNU complex, they no longer really have to focus on this eastern or southern edge. So they're going to be able to just put all their resources on this hotspot here and these hotspots on the finger. So I think this one will be really contained above 50% in the next couple of days. So looking at the numbers, this one is actually now the second largest wildfire in the history of California. It passed up SCU yesterday, and I believe the main reason for that is that hotspot you see up there that expanded to the north. So it's now number 2. It'll be interesting to see which out of the LNU or SCU actually ends up being number 2, because they both still have some expanding areas. We're up to 33% containment though. I think over the next couple of days that's going to go way up. Again, with evacuation areas, this will be interesting to keep your eye on the next couple of days, as I know they're trying to repopulate some of these areas. So damages and losses, this number has gone up since yesterday. We're now at over 1,000 structures destroyed. There have been 4 injuries and 4 fatalities associated with this fire. This number is up as well though. We now have over 2,200 personnel. I know crews have been coming in from Montana, Arizona, Utah, Washington, Oregon, even Texas. So these personnel and equipment numbers have been going up every day. So increasing numbers, being able to magnify your efforts into just one area, I think these fires are looking great. We got 24 crews, 13 helicopters, 292 engines, 68 dozers, and 68 water tenders on this fire. Now, along with that northern portion, the weather forecast is also one of the concerns right now. You can see that today's going to be about 88, but then it's actually going up to 93 on Friday. I think Friday is really the last big concern for this fire. You can see it's getting up to 93. You get those gusty afternoon winds, and humidity is dropping into the 20s. So I'm hoping they'll be able to get some great containment today when it's not as warm and it's a little bit more humid. So I think we'll be able to get some good containment today, and then by the time those unfavorable conditions come in tomorrow, hopefully we'll have this thing a lot more controlled. So looking at the SCU Lightning Complex, let's actually look at it first. Oh, one thing I will say too, on this west zone here, it's been getting a lot of that coastal influence and that marine layer, cooler temperatures, more humidity. So that's been helping out the fight with that significantly. So when it comes to the SCU, that little spot right there is completely contained. And the big thing I notice here, this western edge that has been the main priority, you can barely even find any hotspots left on that. So that's great news because that's the part of the fire that's closest to all these high populated areas. And there's also some great news in the south here. Even though it looks like it's still burning really hot, you can see most of those hotspots are within the previous fire perimeter. And CAL FIRE did say that it's been really slowing down in the last 24 hours. You'll remember this southern portion was the area just expanding every single day, moving farther and farther into Henry Coast State Park. And I'm happy to say it looks like it's starting to slow down significantly. So looking at the numbers, SCU is now the number 3 largest wildfire in the history of California. Almost identical acreage to LNU. It's about 200 acres less. So we're up to 368,000 acres burned, 35% contained. That's going to continue to go up as the fire just keeps burning cooler and not as rapidly. So keep an eye on evacuations. They are trying to repopulate, but they have made life safety the number 1 concern. So we'll see when people can actually move back into the area. We're up to 37 structures destroyed, 5 injuries, almost 2,000 personnel, 23 crews, 7 helicopters, 233 engines, 42 dozers, and 41 water tenders. So all those resources really focused on the last remaining part of this fire. I think they're really going to get some control over this in the next 24 hours. And hopefully they do, because similar trend to the North Bay, temperatures are going up Friday. And then for the South Bay, they're actually going to continue to go up through Monday. You can see it's not that high though, 90 degrees, certainly not the triple digits we were seeing last week. Again, the concern here is that Friday afternoon period where we got the warmer temperatures, afternoon winds, and humidities in the 20s. But honestly, based on the fire behavior report from a CAL FIRE personnel, it seems like this fire is really calming down. So the last fire we'll talk about is the CZU Lightning Complex, and this one is looking really good. I was a little concerned about this one yesterday because they were saying there could be some 18-mile-per-hour wind gusts at the high elevations and some 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts along the coast. But CAL FIRE is looking good at this point in this fire. On the southern edge, they got 2 lines protecting Santa Cruz and UC Santa Cruz, and the biggest thing I noticed on this map is how few hotspots there are left. Yesterday, they had these hotspots all over this region, a lot of them outside of the previous fire perimeter. Now it's looking pretty good. They had a burn operation in here yesterday, getting rid of some of that vegetation, really fighting fire with fire. And I know they're continuing that today. By the time they do that, Felton's going to be looking good, as well as the Ben Lomond and Scotts Valley area. Again, there's a map that shows the damage assessment for Santa Cruz County. I'll put the link in the description for that again. You can actually go into the map and see which houses have been damaged throughout this fire. It is preliminary data though, so don't take it as 100% confidence. So looking at the CZU Lightning Complex, we're up to 81,000 acres. This one's been growing really slowly over the last few days, about 1,000 acres per day. So I don't think we have a whole lot left to worry about in this area. I'm actually surprised this number isn't higher because looking at the map, it doesn't really look like there's that many areas of this fire that are still really active. We got like a couple hot spots in here, but for the most part, this fire looks like it's almost done. And when you look at the weather forecast, conditions are looking good too. So we got 590 structures destroyed. We do have a fatality associated with this fire. Personnel is almost up to 2,000, 32 crews, 12 helicopters, 198 engines, 23 dozers, 32 water tenders. I know a lot of out-of-state crews actually showed up this morning to help with this effort, so they're going to be able to make some great progress today and hopefully really put this fire to bed. Looking at the forecast, it's looking good in this area. 83, 82 Friday, Saturday. Today is only 79. They're going to be able to get some great containment on this throughout the next day or two. And don't pay attention to that number up there. That's supposed to be saying the temperatures right now. And I live in this area. I can tell you it is definitely not 82 degrees. It's actually kind of foggy and cold. So that will certainly help with the fire suppression efforts. I guess, I was going to say that Friday afternoon period, but, it's looking pretty good in this area. Low 80s. There's not supposed to be that many winds. I know we've been getting some of those afternoon wind gusts, but humidities are extremely high. This area has had the best marine influence. They've been getting a ton of fog in the morning. That's really been helping kind of cool the fire off and also moisten some vegetation. So the last thing we'll do is take a look at those wildfire charts that I threw together that actually show how these fires have progressed through time. And this is the main reason I'm confident about saying these wildfires are almost wrapped up. Now, by that I mean the dangerous expansion part of these wildfires is almost wrapped up. There's certainly still a lot of work to do before we can fully repopulate these areas. So looking at the LNU Lightning Complex, you can see it took off between the 19th and the 22nd, but then in the last 4 days, it really hasn't done much. And you'll notice yesterday it did go up, but that was mostly in that northern portion. And they're throwing a ton of resources at that today, so I think they'll be able to get a handle of that. SCU Lightning Complex, very similar trend. Active fire behavior between the 19th and 23rd, but the last 4 days it has really slowed down. And that southern area that has been the area of the most expansion is really slowing down. So I think the SCU graph is going to almost completely flatten out over the next couple days. When it comes to CZU, this one looks a bit steeper than the other graphs, but that's because we're dealing with smaller numbers here. So you can see between the 24th and the 25th, it grew by 5,000 acres, so it looks like it jumped way up. But again, that's not a huge number when you compare it to the 100,000 acres we were getting with the SCU complex some days. And you'll notice on the CZU graph, the last 2 days, it's grown by 1,000 acres per day. And I think that number is actually even going to go down in the next few days here. So I'm happy to say these wildfires finally look like they're wrapping up. Again, we do have some warmer, drier conditions coming in. The LNU still does have that hot spot on the northern portion of the fire, so I will be making at least one more video tomorrow to update you on how the forecast is changing, how the weather conditions have affected this fire, and what's going on in that northern portion. 2 things I'll say before we end. Thank you to CAL FIRE, 1, for all the amazing work you've been doing the last 2 weeks with the hundreds of fires across California. And 2, thank you to San Jose State Fire Weather Research Laboratory. Basically everything I know about wildfires through my work with the Fire Lab and Dr. Craig Clements. As always, if you or any of your family or friends have been affected by these wildfires, my thoughts and prayers go out to you, and thanks for watching.